Hello, Internet, and welcome to another episode of Experimental Cataclysm, the show where we talk about recent changes to the experimental version of Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. Please bear with me as we do this. It's my first show back after quite a long hiatus, so I feel like I'm pretty out of date with what's been going on in the game. My list for changes is also quite long, but I do think some of them will be erased by the time we get done. I have no idea how long the video is going to be, basically. Thank you for being kind during my hiatus, and I can't promise that we're going to be back on schedule like we were previously without any future issues. I'm just glad to be making one again, and I imagine most of you are just glad to get one again. And I have turned off my fan and air conditioner during this brutal heat wave to record this script, so we'll see if my mental health devolves throughout the video as I start to just overheat and die slowly of heat stroke. But anyway, getting into things, first up today from Such a Comic, we've got a bucket brazier. Now this is exactly what it sounds like. I remember seeing an issue about this that requested that we be able to use a metal bucket as a brazier, and now you can do that. Now you do this by crafting the makeshift brazier item and then deploying it, and I have no real thoughts on this item other than the fact that it should not have the boil flag like it does currently, and probably not the contain flag either, since I think that's just for holding liquid, and part of crafting this item is to drill holes in it for airflow, so obviously it would no longer be suitable for, holding a liquid if it has holes throughout the bucket. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. It's a bucket, it's a brazier, it's everything you could want out of such an item like this. Next up today from Gangshia, I'm so sorry. I forgot that the hardest part of doing these videos is trying to pronounce people's names. So anyway, we've got a fix for a Segfault that was happening when you would try to use a hot plate, as well as there was an issue with built-in vehicle heaters as well. Now again, I have not been keeping up with the game lately, so I wasn't actually aware of this Segfault, but those are generally very bad, and it's important to talk about them when they happen. And looking at the issue, they were caused by various hot plates or kitchen unit type items that let you cook things, and I'm honestly just too dumb to understand what was changed here, but hopefully this resolves that issue moving forward in case you were holding off updating, although at this point that change was a couple weeks ago, so probably everyone's updated since then. Next up today from Holli, we've got a nerf for crater spawns. Now I don't know if it's because I haven't played in a while, but I was really surprised recently with how many craters I see when I've been playing the game. Our Sky Island playthrough has us encountering like 1 to 3 craters every time we go on an expedition, which that's what my brain is telling me, which seems like a lot of craters. And I'm not really sure if they were buffed previously and I missed it, but yeah, I've been seeing just a ton of them in the game. But anyway, Holli went in and nerfed their spawns significantly. It looks like they shouldn't appear as frequently, and they've been removed from basically everywhere except for research facilities. Now, I have no real opinion on if this is good or bad. I lean towards them being way too common, and because they're craters, they're not exactly interesting locations. So I wouldn't think people would be upset about this, but then half the time we talk about changes, people are upset whether it makes sense or not. So I don't know the lore, I don't know what the whole thing is, but yeah, so craters have been nerfed basically. Moving on, also from Holli, we've got a bunch of additions for tied down appliances. And if you haven't seen these, basically it's just a way for you to take a large appliance that would be difficult to carry in your hands and tie it up on top of your vehicle for transportation. Now it makes sense that many of these large furnitures would be capable of being tied down in this way, so I'm pretty happy to see this expanded in general. And some examples here would be a tied down drill press, a bandsaw jointer, hydraulic press, things like that. Now you can look at the PR and sift through the files if you want a complete list. I'm not going to read you 15 different appliances here. Okay, and since we're talking about Holli here, let's try to briefly cover the Reddit drama that was taking place. I'll be honest, I hate Reddit. Comes up all the time on these shows. I think Reddit, especially around this game, is just a place for people to be toxic and hate things and be very angry. And I think being on the Reddit is a huge waste of your time, but you do you. It's fine, whatever. And again, it's like 97 degrees Fahrenheit today, so I'm a little irritable, so this section might be a little rude, I don't know. So essentially what happened is that the development team and just the people who kind of work on guns have agreed that they're going to be using Gunbroker to determine gun rarities in the game. And yes, Gunbroker is not the most accurate website in the world. It tracks, I believe it just tracks private sales. Actually, I pulled it up, but I'm hesitant to look at it because it seems like something that will put me on a watch list. And a lot of people have pointed out like, hey, this is not the best website to use to track actual like gun rarity in the game. You know, if you look at previous sales, that doesn't actually indicate that that's how many guns exist in the world or whatever. And those people are absolutely right. This is just a website that tracks some gun sales. It's obviously not the same as getting like hard data from the government or whatever, but historically gun nuts have been very reluctant to share what guns they own with the government or with any organization or whatever. And so when we determine gun rarity in the game and whether a gun should spawn or not, we have to go off of something, and they've chosen to use Gunbroker. Most of the hatred that I have seen, the vitriol, the venom, whatever you want to call it, has been aimed at Holli because they were someone who removed, I think 6 or 7 guns from the game. And they didn't do this because they hate you. They didn't do this because they're just a vile person. I quite like Holli. They've done a lot of stuff for the project over the last several years. They've been very active in the community for a long time. They did this because according to our new metrics, which we are now using to measure gun sales and things like that, they don't meet the criteria required for to keep them in the game, for us to keep them in the game. And so there were several removals, and yes, Gunbroker is not the best website in the world, and a lot of people have been angry at that, and a lot of that anger seemed to have been directed at Holli. I don't really understand why people have been so venomous. I've seen them come to the Discord to complain, I've seen them on GitHub complaining, but pretty much every single complaint that I saw was someone saying like, oh, Gunbroker is terrible, or hey, this should still be in the game because I want it. I haven't really seen a ton of rebuttal that's actually valid here. People say the website is bad, but they don't actually offer an alternative for us to use to determine like how frequent these guns like are being sold in the United States. And then when people complain about a specific gun removal, usually they'll say, well, this many were manufactured and that means they must be present in the United States, but that's actually not evidence of them being present in the United States. Doesn't matter if, 100 million of them were produced somewhere in Russia. That doesn't mean that they actually were sold and exist in the US. So I haven't really seen any valid complaints. I've just seen people being very angry about this. And in general, because I get mad at things too, but when I get mad, I try to offer reasoning for why I'm actually angry and why the decision is incorrect. But a lot of this just seems like hatred for the sake of hatred, and pointing that hatred at Holli, who is just now following kind of the dev direction, is very frustrating to me because they're just doing their job as a contributor. They're removing things that no longer fit with the dev direction, so why are you angry at that person for doing their job and changing the game in their free time like they're supposed to be doing? So anyway, I'm not gonna belabor this. I guess it's probably already too long of a segment. Essentially, it's just me letting you know people are mad about some gun removals, but Holli has added quite a few guns to the game over the years. I'm sure they're still at a net positive for things that they've added. They've worked on tons of stuff. Obviously, we just prior to this segment talked about several of the changes that they've made to the game. So I just don't get it. I understand frustration, but I don't understand, turning that frustration into personal attacks against another person. I think that's pretty messed up. So yeah, not happy about this. I did re-record this segment. I don't know if this version is any better. I just, I don't even really want to talk about it, but I feel like it's something I have to talk about because that's the point of the show. And I do know quite a few of you are on the Reddit, which, you do you. It's your time. It's your effort. You can do whatever you want. But when I look at Reddit and I see a bunch of people whose names I've never seen before screaming about how we have ruined the game, I just have no sympathy whatsoever. And I tend to fall on the side of all the devs and all the contributors that I see working very hard to make this game better all the time. And then some random stranger I've never seen is personally attacking one of those people on Reddit, and it just sort of makes me sick that you think that that's valid. So yeah, I hate this, hate talking about it. There you go. I don't know. Let's just get back to the original recording here. Next up today from Rennick, we've got the addition of real measurements for the mission screen. In other words, when you look at a mission on the map screen or wherever, you will see a distance to target listed there, and it will now display both the tile distance as well as an approximate distance using your preferred metric. So depending on which you have selected, imperial or metric, it will say things like it'll be kilometers and meters, or it will be miles and yards. Thought this was a nice little addition. Doesn't really, change anything, but I thought it was interesting. Moving on, next up today from Nornagon, we've got water going bad. Now it's not as bad as it sounds. Basically, this just makes it so that water in unsealed containers will eventually revert back from clean water to regular water. And it looks like it reverts faster when it's outside after about a week, but indoors it will take about a month for it to turn to regular water. And it's worth noting here again, this is unsealed containers that are left out and open. So if you have a sealed container of water, it's not going to revert to just regular water and go bad. And again, it's just water. You can easily just reboil it or whatever if that's what you want to do. So to me, not really a big deal. Just water going stagnant and gross after, being left out in the open, especially if it's outdoors where animals could be defecating in it, things like that. And yeah, just pretty straightforward, I think. However, on that note, we should discuss the water reworks in general that have been happening alongside this or are going to continue happening, hopefully, in the near future. So I'm going to assume that you're pretty familiar with water, so I'll spare you the detailed explanation here. Basically, before we had clean water and regular water. Now, regular water, no matter what source you got it from in the game, it had a chance to give you parasites, which is really not how it works in real life. For example, if I go right now to my toilet and I drink that water, odds are I'm not going to get parasites. Just like I live in a town, all the water is treated, even though it's in a toilet. Probably I'm not going to get some random bloodworms from drinking water or whatever. Well, now, thanks to a PR, we've had the addition of murky water. Now, murky water is from sources like rivers and other places that are outdoors, lakes, things like that. And this water requires you to filter it using the crafting menu, which requires either water purification tablets or sand filters. Now, I'm a little sketchy on using purification tablets here and turning that murky water into regular water since it's not being filtered to remove all the stuff that makes it murky, but whatever. Now, regular water was also made significantly safer to drink, so if you grab water from the toilet, yeah, it could make you nauseous or whatever, but in the majority of circumstances, you're not going to get parasites or whatever from drinking it. And clean water appears to have been unchanged and is still the safest, cleanest version of water, which is what you'll be drinking most of the time. Now, spring water was also added to the game, but I didn't see anything about springs existing or being added, so it looks like that's limited to bottled water. So the TLDR here is that getting water outdoors will now require more filtering and purification and will potentially give you a lot of sickness if you drink this murky water. However, regular water that's just labeled water in the game is now significantly safer to drink than it was in previous versions. And then of course, clean water is largely unaffected here. I didn't see anything that changed salt water, but this is part of a bigger rework regarding water in general. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to have opinions on this, but I do find this to be an overall improvement and expansion to how we handle water in the game. And I don't know how badly it's going to affect In the Woods players. For example, because you're going to get majority murky water from In the Woods gameplay. And unfortunately, making the sand filter actually requires a plastic bucket, which I think is a bit silly, to be honest. I'm not sure why it has to be a plastic bucket, and I am hopeful that in the future this will include some other possible containers. And obviously, In the Woods players are going to want something that can be player crafted. They're not going to want, a bucket that has to be looted. Of course, In the Woods gameplay is not actually a development priority, so, is this a big deal? I don't know. I just know a lot of people play that way and probably won't like this. But anyway, that's the best I can muster at this point to explain it. Hopefully that made sense. And just remember, this is labeled as part 1 of a water rework, so we have no idea what's going to come down the road, and we will talk about them as they happen. But anyway, let's just move on here. Next up today from Holli, we've got a bench vise. I'm always happy to see things like this, more woodworking, blacksmithing type tools. Personally, I like those things. I know it annoys some people to manage all the tool qualities, but I like the expansions. And honestly, I guess I'm sick of needing to find a swage and die set personally, so I don't love all the tools, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, this PR added a bench vise, which is something that most of you have seen or will know exist in real life. And it does have the anvil quality as well as a level 3 clamping quality. And I did ask on Discord about why it had the anvil quality, but I guess it has a flat spot that's meant for some basic hammering, so there you go. It is only anvil quality 1, I believe. Now the clamping quality is only required currently for 2 recipes, which are caltrops and a makeshift vacuum mold, but honestly it should probably apply to a lot of things, so that is going to be expanded eventually. Now I don't have much to say about this. It's a bench vise. Just thought I'd mention it because vices are pretty universal, like no matter what shop related activity you are currently partaking in. Next up today from Procyon, we've got some marine plants. Now this looks like it was a PR that was previously made by Fairy Armadillo and was picked up later by Procyon and now has been finished and merged to the game. It adds things like algae and sugar kelp and sea lettuce that can be harvested as, plants in the water. Several of these are edible as is, and you can harvest them and eat them straight away if that's what you want to do. And then some of them can be used in recipes. So for example, sea lettuce can be used for creating cattle fodder or deluxe scrambled eggs, things like that. And realistically, most of you are not going to encounter these plants. They appear to spawn on ocean beds, only on ocean beds, which of course, where else would they spawn? And most of you are never going to head all the way over to the ocean, let alone go down to the floor of the ocean. But adding these sort of ocean or water things incentivize people to add other stuff to the ocean, which will make it hopefully a more appealing location, and we will continue expanding in that direction. And hopefully one day that will all snowball into really cool stuff, and before you know it, we'll be starting the game on the Sea Lab or playing a Subnautica start or Waterworld scenario, right? That's what I want. So I in general like seeing water stuff, and who doesn't like kelp and sea sponges and shit? There you go. I don't know, it's cool. Next up today from Haraka, or I see you on Discord all the time. I don't know how to say your name. I'm gonna say Haraka. Haraka, maybe? We've got the addition from them of a smaller lighthouse. Now, we've had a lighthouse previously, but this is a smaller version because, hey, why not have a smaller version? It's a chance to explore something a little bit more manageable than the larger lighthouse that you've probably already seen several times in the game. And I feel like a realtor because the next section of my script says, quote, "The smaller lighthouse is designed to provide a more humble and practical location based on 1800s stone and mortar constructions, but using modern lights." Which I don't know how that's going to come across when I read it out loud, but it's definitely not the tone of my usual script here. But anyway, there's an adjacent 2-story structure with the lighthouse that includes some quarters and storage, as well as being an alternative starting location, but also, is inspired by the original lighthouse from Curse Twist. Now, I don't have a ton of thoughts here. I really only mention it because Haraka posted about it a few times on Discord, and they're a mod over there, so I know their name, I know them a little bit, and because lighthouses are cool and blah blah blah, etc. I don't know, how often do we get new map gen, right? It's a lighthouse. I think this is cool. Moving on, next up, I don't really have much to say about this, but Patrik Lundell has been making a bunch of additions recently, most of which are related to roof map gen. They've been adding a lot of roofs to locations that were missing them, or fixing up existing roofs to make a lot more sense. And I remember Curse Twist did this exact same thing many years ago, just swooping in and doing tons and tons of rooftop locations. And in fact, the majority of the roofs that you see in the game probably came from Curse Twist back when they did that. But anyway, it made me think of that, which is it's like an undervalued part of the project when people come in and do this kind of work, and we all sort of take it for granted, so I wanted to shout it out here. So thank you, Patrik, for all the work you've been doing lately. It looks like, I don't know, like 50 PRs related to roofs in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I'm not going to count them. I'm so lazy. But I did want to recognize that you've been doing a lot here. We appreciate it. People might never talk about it, but adding that kind of stuff obviously is nice to have and makes sense with the game. And obviously we want that. But when people actually put in the work, most of the time we don't really think about it. Okay, and then I do want to add a couple things here that I skipped in my initial scripting phase of this video. Not sure how that happened. I had these on the list and just never checked them out, so I'm going to add them in really quick. Sorry, I'm not covering them in more detail. I'm very behind schedule. This is what we're doing. So first up here from Rennick, we've actually got a change that allows corpses to decay into other things. And unless there was a follow-up PR that I didn't see, which is possible, that would mean this is currently not hooked up to actually do anything yet. It's just the infrastructure for doing it in the future. But basically the idea is that currently in the game, when a corpse is fully destroyed because it rots away, it just simply disappears and leaves nothing behind. However, with this infrastructure, we will be able to do things like make it so zombies will leave behind tainted bones once they rot away, once the corpse rots away to nothing. Animals, of course, could get their own harvests, and we could do these by creature. So if something had like inorganic material that would not decay, we could set that up manually. So although I don't think this is currently plugged in, it's possible I missed a PR where someone did add this to various creatures and I just don't know about it, but currently it doesn't look like it's hooked up. It's just set up to be used in the future. Very cool. I like this quite a lot. Not sure how I missed that in the script. Originally it was like in the middle of the list, so I guess I just skipped that one by mistake. And then the other PR here is also from Rennick, which I did not have a whole lot of time to actually look at, but the basic idea is that if you kill every character that belongs to a specific faction base area, you can then take over that base. So the example video in the PR here actually shows the refugee center, and they debug kill all the NPCs in this area, and then they get the prompt like, hey, there's nobody here, do you want to take over this as a faction camp? And then you absorb whatever like calorie storage they have in their camp stores, and I guess you can start building your base in this location as though it were empty to begin with. So I think, for example, the refugee center is a place that you can actually build off of once you set up like your bulletin board and all that stuff. And it does mention the Isherwood camp here, and a lot of the faction camps, I'm not sure how this works because they're not viable locations for player faction camps to begin with. So for example, if I would go to the Isherwoods and kill everyone and take over the location, can I build a bulletin board? Can I start expanding that location with upgrades? I don't know how that works. And this is one that I definitely should have given more of a look to in my testing and things like that. I should have more information than I do, unfortunately, for you today, but I'm very behind schedule. I'm just trying to get this video out so I don't feel like a failure YouTuber. So if you're interested, you can check out the PR. There will be a link in the description, of course, of this video. And of course, you can just go out and debug, kill people in faction camps, see what you can take over, see what you can upgrade to if that's something you're interested in. The interesting thing here is that it gives you all of their stored calories, which I think is pretty fascinating. So destroying something big like the refugee center and taking that over could net you, years of calories if it's just you and one NPC, basically. So yeah, I wanted to pop in and mention those two changes. I'm not sure how I missed them originally. Sorry they're not more in depth, but I think it's better just to let you know they exist than to not say anything at all. And we'll get back to the regular video. I think we just round out by talking about a few of my changes, and then that should be the end of the video here. And then finally today, I thought I'd round out the show by talking about a handful of my recent PRs. Now none of them are all that exciting, but hey, what's the use of me developing a relatively popular video series if I can't be arrogant and talk about my own contributions? Now I've got 3 of them here, but honestly they'll be quick and easy because I know everything about them, so should be quick here. So first of all, I've got variant underwear for boxer shorts and boxer briefs. Basically someone asked for these for variants of these clothing items, and since I was already working with snippets for other projects, I already knew how to do this. I thought I'd just bang it out really quick. Now I didn't want to overdo it and add a million variants, so looking at the boxer shorts, boxer briefs, for example, we've got 3 main types. We've got solid color, which will output a random solid color for the garment. We've got hearts, which have little random color hearts on them. And then what I referred to here as day variants of these boxer briefs as well. Now these are mostly a joke item that are labeled with the day of the week. I don't know if these still exist in real life, but they were a thing I remembered seeing somewhere as a kid. Basically they have the day of the week on them. You're supposed to wear, I wear Mondays on Monday. I don't know anyone who does that. I think they were a joke gag type gift that just was a thing back in the day, but yeah, I added them to the game. Pretty dumb. And then boxers got the same variants, but they also have the addition of variants containing $100 bills, so they have little pictures of money on them. There's a variant with randomized animal pictures, and there's a variant with a randomized cartoon picture. Now the animals are basically these have little pictures of puppies and kittens on them. And then the cartoon ones are, I created a bunch of cartoon characters when I made the blanket PR a few weeks ago, and I just pulled from them and have them appear on boxers as well. Now, I'm sure I'll have been showing examples of these as we've been talking about it. And yeah, I don't know. The point of this was to make as few variants as possible, but then to use randomized selections for those variants so that translators don't have to translate like 100 different descriptions. They can just translate the little bits. So what do I mean when I say that? Basically, for example, these solid color variants are just one variant. They have one description, but that description plugs in a randomized color that uses an existing group of colors. And what that means is that translators only have to translate that one description instead of writing them all out myself and having them translate like 15 different descriptions. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, the next PR here is something similar, but I did it for tights. I was losing interest in everything. My contributions slowed down quite a bit, but it felt weird to only do like traditionally male underwear without doing something for traditionally female garments as well. So tights seemed like an easy one here. And again, look, wear whatever you want. I'm not telling you like, oh, traditionally female, the tights, men can't wear tights. There's a whole movie about men in tights and it's amazing. So like, you know, don't take that wrong. But anyway, tights seemed like an easy one here. Most tights I see in real life, they're just animal print or solid colors, so it seemed like a fast and easy thing for me to do here. So tights got 3 new versions. There's a randomized colored like polka dot version, there's an animal print version, and the solid color version. Now the animal print tights draw from a list I created which contains the most common animal prints that I could think of. So you could find zebra print, leopard print, or like snake print tights, for example. There's really not much to say there. It's the same reasonings I had for the PR that we discussed previously. And then obviously randomized polka dots, they're just random colored polka dots, and the solid color are just random solid color. And then finally here today, I've got alcoholic snow cones. So during my absence, I was working a lot on adding things to Cataclysm, and one of the things was like one of the main things I did was add snow machines and snow cones. Snow machines being making shaved ice, basically, not like a snow machine on a mountain for skiing. But anyway, when I did that and I added snow cones to the game, I said like, hey, later I'll add an alcoholic version. So I did that. That's what this PR is. It can use the same sugary drink components that the regular snow cones can, and of course it still requires the snow machine, but it also has the addition of alcohol components as well. So the names are also contextual and include both the liquor that you use as well as whatever sweet beverage you use. So for example, if you used a cream soda to flavor the snow cone and you added vodka for the alcohol component, the name of the item will be a fizzy cream vodka snow cone. So it, you know, adds those names together. Anyway, there you go. You've now got boozy snow cones that have been added to the game. Now I also revisited this later after some feedback in order for me to use component groups, and I added a diet soda component group, but honestly, unless you're a contributor, that probably doesn't mean anything to you. Contributor. Cannot speak today. Also, I'm very hoarse. It's so hot in my room right now. With that, however, this video draws to a close. Everyone, thank you for watching. I would love to say that we're back on schedule, but we definitely are not. I've been having a lot of physical health issues, especially with this heat wave really causing my well, we don't have to talk about it, but I'm having a flare-up, which is not great. And that's on top of my already tenuous grip on reality / you know, my pretty bad mental health stuff. So it's been very difficult to accomplish really anything. I've been writing a lot. Writing seems very soothing, but doing YouTube just makes me depressed lately. So like, I've just been struggling. I don't know if we're going to have a schedule again or if this is going to be a little random. I'm very grateful for those of you who are still here after my hiatus. I know a lot of people kind of bailed and don't seem to have come back, which is very disappointing. And I will work to begin producing these update videos again, even if they don't necessarily appear on a set schedule. So for now, everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for being supportive. I, of course, will be back in the future with more content, and I'll see you in the next video.